Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Casey Samson. I run the Casey Samson team at Samson Properties. And we do every year about $125 million in production. So we have a very large team. And Leslie and I came up with an idea of doing coffee for Casey in the morning. And we'll do maybe once a month and stream it live on the internet and talk about topics that are affecting buyers and sellers in today's real estate market. So the topics that we're going to go over every week are going to range from, the dynamics of selling real estate back in the day and what's happening today. Today's market is totally different than the way it was back then. We're going to start with that today. And then we will go over pricing, how you price houses, which by far is the most important thing about real estate. We're going to talk about how you stage a house, how you put it in the proper condition. We'll talk about why the first 30 days today is so dynamically different than it was 20 years ago or 10 years ago. Missing reality. So we'll have a whole series of things that we'll do, and probably do it every Thursday or first Thursday of every month. Okay? So today we're going to talk about the dynamics of real estate today versus yesteryear. Now, I'm not going to take you all the way back when I started, because we were just chiseling out homes on stones and showing people, these are my stones. So we're not going to go back that far. But back in the 80s, we didn't have cell phones. We did not have personal computers. We didn't have computers. We didn't have fax machines. And we certainly didn't have the internet. We didn't have the technology. We were still using Polaroids and Kodak cameras. So there's a huge paradigm shift in how real estate was done then and how it's done now. Okay? What hasn't changed is the pillars of real estate, which is condition of the house is paramount, pricing is critical. If you overprice $20,000, $25,000, you miss an entire market, and that could be a disaster. So you really need to focus on pricing and condition of the house. That hasn't changed. What has changed is the third pillar, which is the presentation of the house and how you take that house, package it up, and bring it out to the market. And then, where is the market? It wasn't where it was back in the 80s, 90s. It wasn't where it was back in 2005. I mean, things have changed. So the way we used to do it, consider selling real estate like fishing. So it's just like fishing. Your bait is the house and the condition of the house and the presentation of the house and how you make that bait look to the market. So then you take your bait and you throw it in the pond that you think the most fish are that are going to catch this bait. So you wouldn't take a baited hook that's set up for an $800,000 buyer and throw it in the $900,000 pool. None of the fish would want that. So you have to make sure that you're fishing in the right pond. Okay? You have to make sure that the bait is where the fish are, and that's where the dynamics of today's market is so different, so much more powerful than it was back then. So back in the day, we would bait the hook, we'd throw it in the MRIS system. We may do an open house, and we would advertise in the Washington Post. That's where the buyers are. So that's where the fish were. So we would throw in the Washington Post with the other 10,000 listings, and that was the internet back in the day for the buyers. I mean, they would literally go to the Washington Post and look for their house. Today is where things are so much more different. Now, some realtors, top producers that have done this for years and years and years, put their houses in the newspaper, big picture of themselves, and that's the way they still advertise houses today. Well, the only problem is the buyers aren't looking for houses in newspapers. Great for the realtors, not so great for the houses. So to be honest with you, we can't keep listings long enough to put together a page to put on the thing, because we'll launch them on Thursday, open houses on Sunday, contracts on Monday, so 3 out of 4 houses sell that Monday. And that's how this market is working. We'll tell you how that works and why that happens. So we could never get an ad together with houses that haven't sold. So we'll talk about how today's market, how you package it, how you market it, where we go, where we look for buyers, where we're throwing our fishing rods in today's market. So just so you know, 107 houses last year sold that we sold, average of 12 days. I mean, those are the real powerful ones. They'd sell an average of 12 days. they sold at 100.11% of what we listed them for, which says that if we said it's 850, it's 850. And, you know, so the track record, regardless of geographic region or price range or whatever, you know, we are sticklers on pricing, have a pricing model and growth charts that tells exactly where your house is going to be. That will be next week's seminar. So I'm going to move right into today's seminar of how we package them and how today's market is different. So let's start with packaging. We used to do, we'd go out and take pictures with our camera and we'd put together little ugly pictures. Today you use fusion photography. And this is different than we had 5 years ago. Fusion photography, imagine if you're looking at a scene that has a pool, a red flowering tree, green grass, and some green bushes. Okay, so the HDR pictures that we get from a normal photographer, the pool is powder blue. The grass looks like it's August grass, a little dyed out. The flowering tree is a little pink, a little dusted out pink. So now fusion photography, if you put the same picture, and again, this is just a live feed. So we'll take it, edit it, put in these pictures so you can really look at it. So right now you're probably looking at it. And you can see the difference between fusion photography and a regular photographer. It's so dramatic that we spend 3 times as much as the average person just doing the pictures. But they're critical and they're the best. And we're not gonna put a house on the market unless if we know that this is better than that, we gotta go with this, no matter what the cost is. There's also a way people now on Facebook are more interested in seeing movies and videos than they are, we've seen them all, dog videos or whatever. You want to see a video. So now the technology for the videos is this stable cam where the guy can walk up to a house, or a girl can walk into the house, walk around the house, look at all the rooms, just literally walk you through this house. So they'll do a 1-minute video in high definition, and then which will get the person's attention, and then they'll click to it and they'll go right to the main website or the main video on YouTube or whatever. So that kind of presentation is now critical. So let's put it in good shape, get it in good condition, get the fusion photography, get this stabilized video going through it, and it's comical to see one that's not the stabilized version. I mean, it's like person walking through the house, it's all jittery, but this is so beautiful, so smooth. So now the pillars of condition and pricing now have a third pillar, and that is presentation. And the presentation is massive because now your market is expecting to see it in different places, not in the newspaper. It's going to see it online. So let's go to the next level. So we know how we were fishing before. Now let's see how we're going to fish now. Now that we've got it prepared, the first place is going to go obviously is the MRIS. And to make sure we're in the right pool of buyers in the MRIS, we're going to make sure the pricing is right. So we hit just the right pool. For example, we have a house today. It's launching today. It is it's probably worth $865,000. Well, there's a massive amount of fish in the 850 and below pool, and we don't want to miss them. So what we're going to do is we're going to throw it in the $850,000 pool. That's what we'll list it at. So you catch everybody that said give me 850 and below. Much bigger pool than the people that are looking above it. So these people are going to see it, and they're going to see an incredible house. They'll all come out. We'll have 20 people in the next 2 days look at the house. We'll have 50 people come to the open house. We're going to talk about how that happens. And then we'll have 5-6 contracts. They will bid the property up to $885. And we'll have 5 buyers. And they'll be doing things like no home inspection, or home inspection for informational purposes only, or no appraisal, or all cash, which is always one of our favorites. So instead of putting it on at $865, we go to $850, and that's what generates all of this. So we're launching it today, so what is it that we're going to do? It goes into the MRIS, it's priced correctly. It's got these beautiful pictures, beautiful movies. The first place people are going to see it is on Zillow and Realtor.com. So Realtor.com and Zillow are the 2 most important sites that you'll look at for these houses. This is where the buyers are. They're not finding through the realtors anymore. They're literally active participants in finding their own home, which again is a change from the way we did it. Used to be the realtor would find it, call the buyer, say I'm going to set up a tour, we're going to look at 8 houses, go buy one. That's not so anymore. The buyers are finding their house. The buyers are telling the realtors which house they want to buy. They go to open houses without them. The realtors facilitate the contract. And in most cases, the buyers are getting cash back from the realtors. In most cases, that would be distasteful to say, you want money back. My commission, you want money back. Well, the bottom line is you're an active participant in finding the house. I mean, you're finding it. So the realtor's time and energy can be better spent on writing contracts, doing home inspections, doing appraisals, doing all the contingencies that they need to do. Kind of think of it as a surgeon, and they're the surgeon, and the buyers are out finding their own houses. So it's a totally different dynamic. But I want to draw your attention to one thing when you go to Zillow. When you go to Zillow and you see a house on Zillow, you're either going to see one agent next to the house, or you can see 4 agents on the bottom. So the way the business model works is an agent pays Zillow to be on those listings. Now, some of the listing agents will say, I'm not going to pay to be on my own listing. I mean, that's my listing. Why do I got to pay you for it? Well, let me tell you. We had our team meeting last night, or our team dinner last night. So, yeah, I'm not going to schedule 9 o'clock, Facebook feeds after team parties ever again. So today we do need the coffee for Casey. But anyways, so you'll see one person on it or 4 people on it. And here's the way this works. The agents are saying, I don't want to pay to be on my own listing. And I'm saying, who do I make the check out to? Zillow is driving all these people to their site to look at our houses. They're presenting them in a fantastic way. Who do I make the check out to? And by the way, I don't want those 4 other people on my listing. Because what happens is an agent will pay Zillow $2,000 a month to be in certain zip codes, 22180, blah, 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 whatever, 20171. So that's their territory. So they want to be advertising down here, the 4, on all listings that are in that territory that don't have a listing agent that's paying to keep them off. So you're either going to see 1 agent, you're going to see 4 agents. Well, if you are selling a house for $1.7 million, and somebody looked at that and wanted more information, would you want them calling those 4 people on the bottom that know nothing about your house? So I was one of those 4 people at one time. We were trying the model. And people were calling me, telling me, tell me about your listing on la-da-da-da-da-da-da. I didn't have a listing on la-da-da-da-da-da, so I didn't know what the heck they were talking about. Then I got it. They think that's my listing. It's not my listing. So they're trying to get information from me, and I don't know anything about it. So at that point, I canceled that subscription and said, just put me on my listings, and that's all. So if you're looking at a real estate agent, say, give me 5 of your listings that are currently on Zillow, and make sure that their listing, like every listing we have, my picture's on it, because if they're gonna talk about that listing, it's coming to us and my team and me. So just make sure that any listing that you put on, the first stop is Zillow, and if their picture isn't on it, they're getting information from who? Your competitors, and they know nothing about it. In fact, they do know something about the houses they have listed. So if they're calling on a 1.5 million, well, I don't know anything about that one, but I do have 4 houses you could look at. And before you know it, your buyer has been diverted to their homes. So it is critical that if you're going to list your house, your agent better be sitting next to that house taking those answers. If nothing else, to block the 4 competitors, they're trying to steal your buyer. So anyways, that's the first stop. So that's Trulia and Realtor.com and all of that stuff. So that's basically just the first stop. And pretty much all houses are going to show up on there. Now, premier agents that do this for a living, agents that do a ton of listings are called premier agents, and you can modify anything you want. You can add different pictures, you can add videos. So you want to be able to do that. I can change square footage on houses. I can change actual things on houses to make them more presentable, okay? By the way, you're going to see Zillow's estimates and and all that. Forget about that. Just forget about that. It's an algorithm. Sometimes it's too high, sometimes it's too low. The only way to price is tune into our next one that I'm going to do on pricing, which is you really need to be a local expert on how you arrive, apples to apples, how do you arrive at your price? And it's not hard, but it's critical. So do not look at Zestimates on Zillow. Whether you're buying or selling, forget about those. And Realtor.com. And if somebody shows up with an automated thing that tells you what your price is, forget about it. What's my price? Prove it to me. price per square foot, percentage of assessment, give me the exact ones. Then once you have that, then you go up and down based on upgrades, location, and things like that. So anyway, so that's the first stop is going to be Zillow. The next stop is, which is so dynamic, and I do credit Christina Moldenhauer with opening my eyes and slapping around the old guys going, stop, there's a new world out there. And she's right. The buyers are, my sellers are 50, 60, and 70. The buyers are 30 and 40. They get their news on Facebook. They get their news on Twitter. They get their news on Instagram. They do Pinterest. They do all these things. And I've got this incredible dynamic team of, you know, I've got the agents that are young, like you guys. They know what's going on. They know how to find it. And then Julie is a master at marketing and social media. So she's packaging this package up. And now we're taking it to the next level. Okay, the next level is targeting audiences. So let me give you an example. We had a house that was on the market since 2009, couldn't sell it. The most recent realtor, top producer, one of the top 4, had it on the market for 644 days, couldn't sell it. So they bring us in and say, what's going on? Well, first of all, it's 920. Well, you just missed the whole 800, 900 and below crowd. So I said, let's move it to down underneath the 900 so we have a new crowd coming in. And the perfect person that's going to buy this house is this big. So your market is not 9 out of 10 buyers or 19 out of 20 buyers love your house. It's confined to this. People with no kids, young professional couple, very meticulous on what they have because it's a historic property. I said, so let's look for, our market is small, but it's young professionals, no kids, very meticulous, probably coming out of Washington, D.C., in a historic district or Old Town Alexandria or something like that. Julie put together the package. She starts targeting these audiences. So that's one audience. And we may say another audience could be people that are moving down. It's a gated community. They travel a lot. So that's another audience. So let's put it to this audience and that audience along with everybody on Zillow. And don't forget to ask me about international because it kills me. We'll talk about international in a minute. So anyways, we put it on, and within 40 days, we sell it ourselves to a young professional couple with no kids coming from Capitol Hill. And the rest of the neighborhood is like, trying to figure out how did you do this when it's been on since 2009 and you guys sold it within 40 days. And the answer is, what we're talking about today is you walk through a house and experience has to lead you to who's the buyer of this house. I mean, the buyer of this house is a 30-something, it's a 50-something. They've got kids over 12 if it's a pool. They got kids under 12 if it's an elementary school. It's the most powerful thing. What is the dynamic of this house? What is so special about this house that it would appeal to a certain audience, a target audience? So you walk around a house almost like a house whisperer going, who is my audience? Who am I looking for? You know, sometimes the sellers are going, well, are you going to pay attention to this bathroom? And it's like, well, yeah, but I'm really trying to think about who are the people in this house. So you have the target audiences. You target them on Facebook with movies. You target them on Instagram. You put up a Pinterest account. You have Twitter. And then you ask the seller, what are the 10 things you love most about your house? And with that, we match up the Fusion photography pictures. It is a Zillow feed, and it just keeps going, one after the other. So you start having this 10 rotation of pictures and best things about this house to the target market that you're looking for. Now, what that does is it drives people to the website to see the house. It drives people to show the house, and it drives people to the open house. Well, once you get 20 people a day walking through a house and 50 people at an open house, we're going to get 5 contracts. If you're priced right now, good condition, we're going to get 5, 6 contracts. And don't let me forget to tell you why that's so critical, because today some people are finding out how critical that really is, okay? So we drive them to the open houses. So what does that give us? It gives us measurable dynamics, measurable numbers of how many people are going to this house. So if we put it on, we do all this work, you get 20 visitors a day, you get this, you get your contracts, everything's fine. So 3 out of 4 of our listings every week that we launch, that's what happens. That's exactly what happens. We handle the contracts, we take the highest and best offer, and sometimes the highest and best offer could be $40,000 or $50,000 more than some of the other bidders. I mean, it's not unusual. We had a 725 that we finished selling it at 771. At one time, we had an 875, $875,000 property, and the buyer had confided in me that they had already lost 6 contracts. So we said, you know, his first weekend, we said, I'm going to need your highest and best offer. So she felt like, oh, I really want this house. So she came back at 917 with no appraisal. And so she bumped her contract $42,000, and she was the only bidder. So that shows how powerful it is for that first weekend. Everybody, you know, 2 things drive the market, fear and greed. Well, fear that somebody else is going to get this house. If you've already lost 6, and you know, sometimes the husband or wife is going to say, we're going to get this house. And that's what happens. So contracts will come in this level, and all of a sudden, one of the contracts will come in up here. And that's because we do what's called highest and best offers. We'll talk about that in the future on contract negotiations, how you squeeze the most out of a house and get more than the appraised value, and yada, yada, yada. But we have now measurable statistics. You can see that it's happening. And so before Christina, I'll say, before all the social media stuff that we just attack this with a vengeance, I would say you would get 5 visitors, and 15 people at the open house. Now we're getting 15 to 20, and getting 30, 40, and I think we had 70 at one of our open houses, you know, 2 weeks ago. So, you know, I don't have to think whether it's working. I know it's working. I can see it working, you know, and I'm not sure whether it's Facebook or Instagram or Pinterest or whatever it is. All I know is it's working, and it's driving people into our listings. And we test that by asking people that aren't doing that and watching the other listings. Are they selling in an average of 12 days? Are they selling in the first weekend? And the answer is no, they're not. They're sitting. And the reason is they sit is either they're not doing social media, they're not next to their house on Zillow, or it's overpriced. And it could be overpriced because the realtor may want to have that house, have that sign up. Sign is good advertisement for that realtor. And being in the newspaper is good advertisement for that realtor. Not so much for the seller, awesome for the realtor. So not our model. Our model is, let's put them on, let's get them priced right, let's get everybody to bid, let's beat the appraisal, let's beat the home inspection. So let me go back to the home inspection for a second. The example is if we do it here and it's worth this, then we'll bid it up to here. And you have 5 people. So one of the new things about today that's different than yesterday is the home inspectors are brutal. The home inspectors, some of them think it is up to them to try and extort money from the seller. I'm gonna get you a new roof. I'm gonna get you a new HVAC unit. So it's not going through the house saying this is the functionality of your house and explaining it to them. It's trying to get them money. So if I have 5 or 6 buyers and a home inspector tries any of that stuff, the seller maintains the leverage over the buyer in the home inspection process. So 2 sellers wanted to price their house up here. We do get contracts, but we get 1 contract. Both are having problems getting the home inspection released. People are saying, I'm out of here. It's like, no, you're not out of here. Because if we flunk our home inspection, we have a problem. So we need to make sure that we have backup contracts that, you know, one person may walk, but there's somebody right behind them. And then there's another person right behind them. So it never goes back on the market as failed our home inspection. We just shift it to another buyer. So, you know, that's one of the other critical things that I think about today's real estate market is when you have a home inspector, some of them can be very difficult and very tough. And before you know it, you found yourself putting that house back on the market again. So this is, you know, in conclusion, I'll keep this short, but it's not your parents' real estate market anymore. You can't do it the old ways. You have to understand what's in your best interest versus what's in the best interest of the realtors. You need to know, and we'll talk about the dynamics of the commission structure. It's not the way it used to be. It's just not the way it used to be. We used to, you know, you would charge one thing and this was customary. It's not customary anymore. I mean, the paradigm shift is to the buyers finding their own properties and to the sellers being able to market their properties much more effectively. And if you have a listing period that's 10 days as opposed to 125 days, it's much more economical for the realtors too, and so they don't have to charge so much money to the sellers. So that's a whole different dynamic we'll get into, but the commission structure today is not what it was yesterday. Now, bless their heart, people that have been doing it for 30 years, dinosaurs, you kind of stay with what you've been doing for a long time, and we're not changing. But just like all dinosaurs, they eventually lose out to the newer markets that do the dynamic marketing, that charge the more dynamic commission structure, the way they market it and handle it and package it and all the rest of that. So, and price it to sell. So anyways, that will be our first Coffee with Casey. When we come back next month or whenever, we'll work on pricing, exactly how to do this pricing. Because let me tell you the difference between putting a house on the market, and I'm just gonna make this statement as far as pricing is concerned. The lower you price your house, the more money you're gonna get. Repeat that. The lower you price your house, the more money you're gonna get. And people will say, well, you're putting your house on the market off low. Just let it be. Because if you get the biggest market to look at this house, they will bid it, and they'll bid it way over. And what happens is the opposite is true. If you price your house too high, it will sit, get stale. Our houses that sold over 140 days will sell at 98% of their assessed value, whereas the homes that sell within 10 days sell at 110% of their assessed value. So if you put it on high and it eventually comes down here, you've hurt the neighborhood. You killed the neighborhood. But if you price it here and it goes to here, you're helping the neighborhood. You're building prices up. And that's a dynamic that a lot of people don't understand, but we'll talk about the pricing thing in the next one. All right? So Leslie, thank you very much for setting this up. I know I look bad on film. Next time I'll get either a stand-in or makeup artist, or I won't have a team party the night before I do it. But thank you for joining. I hope this helps. We will have this posted on CaseySamson.com. You can reach our team at CaseySamson.com. 703-508-2535 is my phone number. I do all the listing presentations. I do all the pricing models. And I'm the person they'd be talking to. Okay, thanks. We'll see you next week. And that's a wrap.